Wonderful. So welcome. My name is Sarah Lewis. I am actually the HR representative with the Girl Scouts of Kentucky's Wilderness Road Council. However, I have been with Girl Scouts for about 7 years now and have found myself in our membership department, our programming department, and now I am also the executive assistant to our CEO. So I have worn many hats. But I love getting to meet people and speak with people. So I am very excited to be speaking with Erica and Kristen today. And with that, I've talked about myself a little bit, but I would love to hear more about each of you. So we will start with Erica. So Erica, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do. And again, please feel free to give us as long an answer as you want, because I did look at your bio and it could take some explaining. It sounds like you're both of you sound like very, very smart women, and I really would love to understand what it is that you do. So we'll start with Erica.
Thanks, Sarah. And Chris and I are super excited to be here. She and I are partners that work together at a public accounting firm that's PricewaterhouseCoopers or PwC. You might be able to see my pillow back there. I keep close by for naps. So yes, I love to hear that you have worn many hats in your time at Girl Scouts, Sarah, and I can only imagine Kristen and I have done something similar. So I'm a tax partner at PwC. I've been at the firm for 17 years, I think it is at this point, and I've been in tax the entire time. So I would admit that I disliked my tax class in college, and I'm a Buckeye, so I'm an Ohio State graduate, but I love what I do every day in tax. So it worked out well, but it wasn't like my college experience. And I will say that tax and maybe accounting, and we'll probably get into this a little bit later, it has a little bit of a stigma to it that it's a boring job where I sit at my desk all day and crunch numbers. And I will tell you, I'm not great at numbers. I love to use a calculator when I need it. But I will say that we're really a service organization. So we have customers and clients and companies and businesses that we serve throughout the world. Specifically for me, I'm in Cincinnati. So Cincinnati, Columbus, Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, Michigan, all over sort of the Midwest and other spaces. But ultimately, I'm just a service provider, and I try to help my client with all of their tax needs, whether it's from a financial statement standpoint, if we're an auditor of them, or if we're a consultant and we're helping them try to save some tax money. So that's really what I do every day. It's about building relationships, building trust with my clients and customers, and just helping them.
I love that. I think it's so interesting that you were able to share about how it is about relationship building and about the actual client relationship, because you're absolutely right. I think when people hear tax or accounting, they do think numbers and spreadsheets. So that sounds really incredibly interesting. I'd love to hear more about that later. And Kristen, let's turn it over to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Absolutely. Good afternoon. My name's Kristen Basa. I also live in Cincinnati, similar to Erica. I am born and raised and educated in Ohio. I went to undergrad up in Northwest Ohio at the University of Findlay, and then I did my master's at Xavier University here in Cincinnati. Also, like Erica, I've been at PwC for nearly 17 years. I spent the vast majority of my career here. I am on the consulting side of our practice, and so with that comes a lot of travel, lots of getting on airplanes on Monday morning and coming home on Thursday evenings. And so earlier in my career, that was, a pretty rough schedule to keep. And so I did take a couple year break. I was offered a job at one of my clients. My clients are all health insurance providers. So you can think of all your big Blue Cross, Blue Shield plans, all of your national health insurance companies like United Healthcare, kind of in our market, you'll hear Elevance Health or Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. So those are my clients. I did step away for a couple years to get some industry experience, but did come back to PwC about 8 years ago and was admitted to the partnership with Erica this year. I spent a lot of time doing people-focused work. So, like I said, my clients are health insurance companies, but I spend a lot of my time focusing on, as health insurance companies are either buying other companies or divesting companies, I do a lot of the people or the human capital work. So I'll help with organization design. I help with, all sorts of different talent topics. I do a lot of also a lot of work where my clients are implementing, new technologies or new tools. On those projects, I'll do a lot of change management. I'll help drive all of the communications, the training work, as my clients are implementing different pieces of technology or software.
That's
So
fantastic.
that's
It sounds like you all do so much more than just spreadsheets. I think
We
it's so cool
do.
that you get to travel, and I definitely in the last few years have learned a lot more about insurance being in HR now. So I'm sure that I could appreciate some of that work that you do as well. But that's amazing that you get to travel sometimes, and the fact that both of you have been with PwC for so long clearly speaks well for the business as well. It must be a great place to work. So,
Absolutely.
Speaking of that travel that you mentioned, Kristen, I know that you said it could be kind of a rough schedule. So my next question is actually around self-care. So self-care is super important, especially in the post-COVID time. So whether you are traveling or whether you are getting to work from home or remotely, how do you find time for implementing self-care? What do you practice? So I'll direct that at you first, and then we'll hear from Erica.
Wonderful. Yeah, I will say, and Erica, I'm sure can speak to this too. It is much easier now being on the road to take care of yourself. I try at least, 5 to 6 days a week to get a good hour's exercise in. PwC has this nice benefit that when we travel from city to city, we're able to essentially, register for fitness classes or go to the gym, through this program that they offer because we are on the road so often. So I spend definitely and try to do an hour of exercise a day. I also really enjoy, when I'm on the airplanes, I try not to work as much, and I enjoy reading all fiction stuff, just, something that's lighter or mysteries or things like that, just a little bit of break from work. And I have tried to start meditating a bit. I use the Peloton app, and I usually do it for strength classes, but I've tried to start to kind of branch out and do a little bit of meditation too, and start that practice.
Very cool. I actually didn't know that was part of Peloton, that they had a meditation part of it. I love that you mentioned reading while you're on the planes. In addition to being HR, I am an executive assistant to our CEO. I love that you're able to find that leisure time while you're in the middle of traveling. I might suggest that to her instead of work. So, Erica, let's hear more about how you take care of yourself with self-care. How do you separate work from your home life? How do you make sure that you're able to get all of this work done and also take care of your mental health?
Absolutely. And I love Kristen's examples. I'm not a meditator, but I do a lot of the other things that she does. So I think that's really important when you do have a very busy career and you have other things in life that you love to do, is just you have to proactively find that balance. And I completely agree that the firm, one of the reasons I have been at the firm and have stayed at the firm for the 17 years that I have, is because of the flexibility and the ability that I got to sort of own my self-care. And they do offer wonderful programs. I mean, beyond exercise, it's childcare. I mean, there's it's leave, maternity leave. It's all of those neat things that we are very important to our lives. There are milestones, especially as a mom. Being able to take that time away and disconnect was super important to me. But not even that, there are people who aren't moms and they want to just go to the beach. They want to go travel somewhere. They want to go hang out with their friends at a ski resort, right? And we provide, I think, a good placemat for any of that. But myself specifically, I would say I've spent the 17 years, and you mentioned Sarah post-COVID. I feel like self-care, I tried to start that as early in my career as I possibly could, because if you don't start early, it's very hard to relearn it, or it's very hard to just learn it. So we are in an industry, in a service industry, that you can just say yes to everything, and then you get overwhelmed and it's too much, and there's a breaking point, which is very common. And so for me, it was kind of setting trusted boundaries with my mentors and the people I worked with right at the beginning of my career. And in some ways it was funny. I'll tell a joke. The partner I worked with when I was just starting out would always say that we all got sick around Friday at 3:00. And that was because we were all going to hang out with each other at Friday at 3, because we were pretty much burnt by Friday at 3 mentally. And it was so nice that you had support system, right? And someone to tell you, go ahead and go do that. And then come back and do what you need to do over the weekend or early Monday to catch up. No big deal. Or get your work done in time to leave on Friday. So I did that right away. And I too love learning, love reading. I do like learning, but I like reading more. Sort of the fiction, something that I can completely disconnect and just enjoy and think about something else. Listening to music. Sometimes I find on the car ride home, because it's a little bit of a longer ride, I love just turn the music up, blast it, and sing like people do, sing in the shower. Whatever disconnects you from that work feel, so that when you come home, I'm just Erica. I'm Erica wife, Erica mom, Erica having fun, not necessarily work mode Erica. So that's what I try to do to self-care.
Yes, that makes total sense. Definitely relatable. I think that it's wonderful that you both have these ways that you intentionally set time aside, whether it's the full hour of exercise or the reading, or the music driving. That's definitely one for me as well, getting to just kind of drive, especially on a nice day. And speaking of a nice day, our next question is, what would you describe as a perfect day? So not related to work, just you, Kristen, and Erica, what would you individually describe as your perfect day? And we'll start with you, Erica, on this one. Okay, great. Well, it's interesting you asked not a non-work day, because I feel like my perfect days, I could have so many different kinds. But if I had a sort of a perfect day, similar to Kristen, I like to get a workout. So if I can get a quick workout in, regardless of time or what it is, I love to be able to do that. I love to go to lunch with my staff, to be honest. So if it's a perfect work day, it's going to lunch with a staff member or going to lunch with a client, making them laugh, making them smile, helping a client that has a difficult question. It's kind of nerdy, but when you get that answer and you help them through something, it's really, it's awesome. Like, you do really feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. And so that is a good day. And then coming home, helping my daughter with her homework, and which is probably the last thing I want to do, but it's perfect to spend time with her, have a laugh, maybe have a cocktail with my husband and hang out at home at night. And then when they both go to sleep, turn on some sort of guilty pleasure TV show that I can watch all by myself until I go to bed. I love that. But my favorite part about all of that is that it is very achievable. It could happen on any regular Wednesday, and so you could have a perfect day all the time. Yeah, so that's great. Absolutely. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just go to the beach. Then that's also a perfect day. And I eat ice cream. Also, So Kristen, imaginary or achievable, either one, what would you describe as your perfect day?
Yeah. So my perfect day would definitely start with something that I didn't have to rush and wake up to an alarm and, be running out those doors. So just like a bit more of a leisurely start, maybe sit on the patio with my dog and have a cup of coffee. Something that's not super rushed. I think is definitely the key to the start. And I don't know, my perfect day, I guess non-work day is just being outside, like being active on a beautiful day, exploring new places, definitely finding some delicious food or, new restaurant that I haven't tried. I do love to exercise, but I probably love to eat even more than that. So I would definitely incorporate some delicious meal, whether it's lunch or dinner, or actually, if it's my perfect day, it's probably brunch, because I love a leisurely brunch on a Saturday and Sunday.
Yes. It is funny that you use the word leisurely. That's what I was going to say next, was that it sounds like your perfect day is maybe kind of slow and easy and relaxed with good food. So that's great. Yes. Now, we sort of talked about, and it sounds like both of you are pretty cognizant of your health and exercise and making sure that you're keeping yourself healthy. With that, it sounds like your personal life involves a lot of self-care, which is great. How do you balance things like self-care and personal life and passions and dogs and kids and homework? How do you balance all of that with your career? Do you use certain tools? I know you're both pretty established in your time with PwC. So what are the best ways that you have found to balance your career? And we'll turn this one to Kristen first this time.
Yeah, I would say this is pretty basic, but like many people, I know Erica and I kind of live and die by our calendars. And so I always, on Sundays, I always start with my calendar, make sure I've got my workouts blocked. My teams know that if it's something super urgent, they can schedule over top of that. But I really try to be very intentional kind of before the start of the week, just to get that on the books, so I know when I'm going to work out. And then, I will say, even though consulting does require a lot of travel and a lot of time on airplanes, post-COVID, it is a tad more flexible. When I started kind of early in my career, it was always, I was on the first flight out every Monday morning, and I was always on the last flight home every Thursday or Friday. And so now I'm trying to be a little more intentional with just 2 overnights if possible. So, for example, this week, as soon as I finish up here, I'm going to head out to St. Louis and then spend Tuesday night there and then Wednesday night in Detroit. So I'm trying to, again, when possible, and it doesn't happen all the time, but really just to manage 2 nights away from home when possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's great that you're able to kind of take a step back and evaluate, okay, what do I need to actually get the work done? And what do I need for my personal life? So that's awesome. So Erica, how do you balance your career and personal life and passions that you have?
Gosh, I don't know, Sarah, if you could tell me what I should do. and look, I say that. Yeah, me either. I say that because there's no science to it. It's an art, and it can be difficult. And for me, I try to be as flexible as I can, because I love my calendar as well. Live and die by it, love it. Try to block off what you can. Inevitably, something pops up and you adjust. And I think the more flexible you can be in your career, no matter what you're doing, flexible, being willing to step out of your comfort zone, take on a new assignment that you maybe didn't think you would want to do. And then maybe that involves some travel, just to change it up a little bit. But trying new things, being flexible, for me has so far worked really well. And I didn't start my career 17 years ago saying, I'm going to be a partner at PwC. I'm just going to do that. I'm going to have this regiment. I'm going to do that. I kind of took each step at a time, each promotion, as you might call it, at a time. And I reflected at each impasse and said, do I still like what I'm doing? Do I still love this company? Do I still want to do tax? And the whole life, right? You got to think about everything. I got married. I had a child. At the same time, I said, okay, do I still want to continue to do this? Do I still think I can do it? I will say having a great support system at home has tremendously helped me because I think if you've got support at home, it further enables you to be able to be flexible and to try to be able to do everything. At the end of the day, I think Kristen, we try to do everything. And some days you just can't, but most of the time you can, and you just have to be flexible in getting there. But you have to be okay with being moving things around every now and then.
Absolutely.
Yes, you have to be able to be flexible. I think that is a really great lesson for our girls, especially our girls that are in the later high school years, because, you know, our kids are in these, especially public school, where they have their classes on a set schedule and everything is pretty rigid, and then you get out into the real world and everything's very organic and you kind of have to find that responsibility to balance it all yourself. So I love that. Being flexible kind of takes the pressure out of it for sure. Knowing that you'll be able to handle it, whatever comes along.
Yep.
So with that, I know you've both spoken a little bit about your history with PwC. I'll start with Eric on this one. How did you get to your position today? You just talked about how every time that you kind of moved into a new role or were promoted, you were able to sort of pause and decide, okay, is this where I want to be? Yes, I would like to continue on. So how did you get into your position today, and did you experience any obstacles along the way?
It's a great question. I would say that number one, I did work hard. I wouldn't have gotten here if I didn't work hard. So I have to give myself that credit. I pushed myself. I worked late when I had to work late. I took time off when I could take time off to sort of refresh. I would say one of the biggest reasons I got to where I am today, which is a partner, I just finished my second year, is having the right support, which was having wonderful mentors along the way, both men and women in my career who really took me under their wing and gave me really neat opportunities that allowed me to grow, and it pushed me out of my comfort zone. And sometimes I didn't like it, but I know looking back that they were good experiences. And just having that support really allowed me to flourish, to push me to my limit, but they also helped me hold that limit and be strong and not burn myself out, as we sort of say as a term in public accounting. You can get burnt out. And I won't say that there weren't moments. There absolutely were. And I'm sure there will be more moments. But I think that's how you overcome the obstacles. Is everything's temporary. So if you're working on something that you don't especially love to work on, I know there's a deadline, because there's got to be a deadline. Or if I want to seek out a new opportunity or work on a new area of tax or something that's not even tax related, I just need to find that right person within the firm that I can go to help me get that opportunity. So yes, obstacles, absolutely. I mean, I think I had instances where you had very difficult clients, and will always be difficult clients. And so that flexibility comes into play again, which I can tell you, I interact differently with each of my clients, because they're all a little bit different. They have different expectations. They have different standards. There's obviously a very high quality standard, but they have different personalities. They have different priorities. Some are more in the weeds. Some of them are very high in the sky. And so I just, through the obstacles of interacting with them, have learned a bunch of different personas that I can now apply. But there were obstacles at times, because there were people that maybe I just didn't get. We just have different personalities, and you learn how to work with them. And I think that's the same with my teams. We have awesome, diverse teams. And I don't think you're a successful team without having diversity on your team. And that goes with our partnership as well. We've got so many different partners in our partnership at PwC that are good at different things. And that's okay. That's fantastic, actually. But you may not all get along with each other one way or the other. And you just learn how to overcome those obstacles by learning through experience, having coaches and mentors and support to help you, and just not giving up.
Yeah, that is a great outlook, and I'm glad that you mentioned burnout as well, because we certainly have that in the nonprofit world too, and that's a
Absolutely.
very cool. A quick fact that I will share is one day, I think it might have been on NPR, but I learned that if someone does end up in burnout, it can actually take up to 3 years before that person is able to feel like they have fully come out of it. And so it's super dangerous to let yourself fall into that. So I'm really glad that you've mentioned these support systems, and that at the end of the day, everything is temporary. There is that light at the end of the tunnel. If you are working with someone a little challenging, maybe a little passionate, there's a chance that, it won't last forever, and you can move along to the next project. So,
Absolutely.
Kristen, tell us about what obstacles you may have faced. I know you mentioned that you had taken a little bit of a break, and then you came back about 8 years ago to PwC. So how did your journey look for PwC, and what experiences have you had that might have had some obstacles along the way?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, similar to Erica, when I thought about this question, the number one thing that came to mind in terms of how I got here was just hard work. I mean, it's as basic as that. I've never found myself to be the smartest person in the room, but I can control how hard I work. And that will just get you so far. I would say the other thing, just having a really positive attitude, obviously being judicious with your time, but saying yes to every opportunity that comes to you that makes sense. I think that's really where you learn and you grow professionally and you grow personally by just kind of diving into opportunities that are presented to you. In terms of obstacles, I would say, I think myself, I've been, you know, still today, but definitely early in my career, I think I had some confidence issues where I was a bit of a self blocker, and
Mm.
at times didn't think I deserved a seat at the table, or didn't think I was, as qualified, perhaps as some other people, that I worked with. But I think, really kind of working through some of those confidence issues. Erica mentioned coaches. We have opportunities sometimes to work with executive coaches to help us, as we're progressing in our career. Some really, again, kind of hard work and some focused attention, on confidence specifically. I think largely I've been able to overcome some of that.
Yeah, that is great to hear. And currently, we employ all female staff at the Girl Scouts. Men are absolutely welcome to apply. We just don't always have very many applicants. So I think that what you mentioned there, Kristen, about confidence, and especially when it comes to moving into different positions or new positions, it can be really intimidating. There's some of that imposter syndrome sometimes, and I think that as women, it's something that we face a lot. So
Yes.
I am glad that you that, and you've both mentioned coaching and mentorship as well so far, and I think that those are both fantastic tools to have highlighted. So with coaching, I had a question here about leadership. So a lot of leaders are great at coaching. We have a lot of great coaches at Girl Scouts. What do you think makes a great leader? And is there a particular leader that you look up to, and why? I'll give this one to Kristen as well.
Okay. Yeah. When I think of leadership, I guess, one of the things I try to do is, obviously I'm working with my staff every day on content and work and topics, right? But I do try to learn a little bit more about them kind of outside of work too, just, understand a bit of their personal life, and, understand that everybody has stuff going on, kind of outside of our, normal kind of day-to-day work day, and just being very, very cognizant that people, are dealing with certain things that perhaps I don't know about. And so just, recognizing that, there is stuff going on kind of outside that may, at times distract from what you're doing at work, I think is just important. I try to get my teams to, feel comfortable communicating to me and coming to me with, some of that stuff. Again, if we don't know about a problem, we're not able to kind of help solve it and help kind of work through it. So I think, I always try to get my teams to really understand, and I try to, be a very good communicator as well, for some of the leaders and the people that I respect. I will say I've had an incredible mentor, many, but one specifically that, really over the past few years has helped me through the partnership and mission process. And my sponsor, George Mansour, is somebody that has, this is a process to get admitted to the partnership, but at times you don't make it the first time. And so I was deferred on my first go around, and it was going back to confidence, it was a pretty, soul crushing experience to go through, but having somebody, to help you kind of work through that, to realize that you are very good at your job. You're here for a reason. You do deserve a seat at the table, and just kind of helping really build that confidence back up in a very low point in my career it's something I will remember for the rest of my life, and something that, I hope I can do for others as a leader.
Sure. I completely understand that. And it is always tough in the moment to really acknowledge the growth that might come from those sorts of letdowns. Maybe the universe doesn't think that you're ready yet, or maybe there's a roadblock that you can't see yet. And then hindsight's 2020, you realize that everything worked out anyway. So I totally get how soul crushing things could be little tough sometimes, but I love what you said about open communication with your team, and that everyone has their own stuff that they're facing, and change is hard for everyone, and change is pretty constant. And so it's great that you mentioned caring about what your team has going on outside of work. That's fantastic. Erica, what quality do you think makes a great leader, and is there a particular leader that you look up to?
I love Kristen's answer, and it's a fantastic story. So I'm happy to have been able to get closer to Kristen in the last few months and know a little bit about that background. So it's wonderful to have her share that. And I just think that there's a difference between a manager and a leader. So
yeah,
you can manage. A lot of people can manage other people. That's easy. I do think it is a lot harder to lead others. And I guess what that means to me is that the people that you're leading know that the decisions that you're making are for the impact of for everybody, for the greater good of everybody, or the entire team, or in our case, maybe the entire firm, as opposed to someone who's maybe just making decisions or kind of looking out for themselves, or one person favorably over another. It's really someone who can see the big picture and make a difference on the whole, for the whole group, not just themselves. I think a leader leads by example. So we can preach all day about work-life balance and trying to manage schedules and flexibility, but if we as partners, if we as leaders in our firm don't show that, then they don't believe it. So I think that showing by leading by example is critical, because people have to believe you. And there were two women through my career that made a big impact to me from a leader standpoint, and their names are Melissa Wasson and Barb Bukovic, and they just showed me how awesome a female leader can be, especially at our firm, but even like in the community, being involved, just representing our firm, representing themselves as moms, and just the accomplishments that they made throughout their careers. If you look back at women in accounting 20 years ago when they may have started. I won't put an age on them. So, when they started, versus when I started, it's very different. And just the strides and the paths that they paved for future female leaders like Kristen and myself, I can't imagine having been in their shoes. So I can only thank them for sharing in the wealth of opportunity that they got for us, that they produced for us in this industry. So it's pretty awesome to have them, to call them friends, but call them our fellow partners and work with them. And I feel the same way about Kristen. And I know we feel the same way about really all our partners, even the men and the women. But those two for me stuck out when I was thinking about this. So thank you.
Wonderful. That's so great to hear that. And I love that you mentioned the difference between leading versus management. Those are, I think, becoming more and more distinguished over time. I think that leading by example is something that I love about Girl Scouts in particular, because we do have a lot of older Girl Scouts who are able to lead the way for our younger girls. And so we have identified that as well, as seeing that leading by example can really help build up the next generation. So I love that. And I did want to go on to our next question because you gave me the perfect segue. You mentioned that 20 years ago, women in accounting might have looked very different than today. So the next question, and I'll turn it back to you, Erica, is how has your field changed in the past, let's just go with 5 years, and what do you predict will happen in the next 5 to 10 years?
Gosh, I wish I had the crystal ball. I would say that COVID really threw our industry for somewhat of a loop, and maybe not so much in our public accounting space, because we were all fairly flexible on where to work, when to work, somewhat. I totally agree with Kristen that it was still, you have to be there this day, this time, and leave this day. I totally agree with that, but we were a little bit more flexible. I'll leave it at that. And I will say that COVID and having to work remotely very much changed where we work, when we work, how we work, both us as the service providers, but also our clients. And so I think that very much changed the mindset for a lot of them also, which has changed our environment of working. They're not coming in as often. They don't travel as much. So the expectations can be different as to where and how and when we work. I think to some extent, the downside of that is sometimes you miss the human interaction of just getting together and seeing someone, whether it's our staff or our clients or whoever, right? And so you have to find a good balance. I think we haven't found that balance yet in coming back out of COVID. I think we're all working on it, but it's very hard to figure out what that balance looks like. So I do think in the next 5 years, we'll figure it out. I think everybody in the business world will kind of figure out what it looks like. And I think what we've learned, and I've learned as a leader of my teams, is everybody's different. You have to remember that everybody's different. So one solution will work for everybody. So you have to, I hate to use the word flexibility as we're talking this whole time, but there's going to have to be some form of flexibility if you want to retain great talent and help them succeed, especially our females. We gotta, the women in our industry, we gotta continue to build up. We have to. 5 years ago, there were so many, or 20 years ago, but 5 years ago, I still think there were so many women in this industry that said, I can't do it all. I can't have a family and I can't have this career. And I absolutely think that mindset is shifting. I think it shifted a lot. Kristen, I'd love to hear what you think about that too. But I think if we can continue that push, it will make it even better, and it'll sort of change that stigma or whatever that we've created for women to have a career and have that family. And I hope that's where I see that in the next 5 years.
Yes, definitely. I can see that as well, that pressure to pick between them. Either you can have your family or you can have your career. And I'm really glad to hear that you have felt a shift there, because that definitely gives us some hope for the next generation to be able to have both as well. I also love that you mentioned that everybody is different and that we will figure out how to move through this sort of recovery period. I know it's crazy because it's been about a year and a half at least since things have started to improve pandemic-wise. And we're still in recovery from that. And I think that we're all still figuring it out. And so I appreciate that you both seem like you're able to give your teams a little bit of grace and understanding. So Kristen, you are up next. How has your field changed in the past 5 years for you? And what do you foresee for the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, healthcare, is always changing, just with, all of the research and all of the development and, all of the, whether it's kind of new advancements on the delivery side of the healthcare system, whether it's changes to, how hospitals and providers are reimbursed, really shifting from more of a kind of transactional way to, pay and incentivize providers to now, largely focus more on delivering quality and outcomes. And, insurance companies are really starting to evolve and, realize that that is, a better way to incentivize providers for, again, delivering high quality services, make sure that people are getting better and are, becoming healthier and managing healthier lifestyles. So, healthcare itself, I think, is changed so much in the last 5 to 10 years, and will continue to do so. There's obviously there's also a lot of regulatory changes that impact the healthcare system. I mean, I know everybody remembers the Affordable Care Act and some of the massive changes that were made several years ago that really impacted each and every single one of our lives. I would say, in the future, and Erica and I are talking about, and our firm is making a huge investment in artificial intelligence. And, we are a services provider, but, generative AI is here. And, there's all sorts of, ways in which our clients are really trying to figure out what to do with this, how to capitalize on it. And so I think, we're probably going to be spending, a lot of time in the next 5 years, working through some of that and how our firm and how we help really our clients adjust to some of these, new, the new way of working in the new world.
Sure, that makes total sense. And there are a couple of things that I wanted to touch on in what you just said, because our next question is about the difference that some of the people in your industry are making in the world. And you mentioned both healthcare and AI. And with healthcare, like you said, it's kind of ever changing and ever developing, hopefully in positive, impactful ways. So that makes total sense that providers have to have their back end things as well. And we hope that we are setting them up for success and high quality service. And then with AI, that really has clearly taken off just in the last, 6 months even. So it is pretty incredible. So with that, what are some ways that people from your industry are making a difference in the world, whether that is working with our healthcare providers, insurance, or something as new as AI? I'll send this back to you, Kristen.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that, my clients are laser focused on is making healthcare more affordable for people. I know, many people have had, the opportunity to get health insurance through an employer, or through, a spouse's employer. When you don't have that opportunity, and now that you are mandated to, have health insurance, it's very, very expensive and very, just an additional thing that you have to add into your budget. And so I think, one of the things that my clients can do, and are laser focused on is trying to bring down that cost of healthcare, trying to, drive all sorts of preventative care and, maintenance and things that we can do to help, kind of drive a healthier population, thus, drive less utilization in the health industry. And again, ultimately really help drive down the cost of healthcare, which has just been, kind of climbing for years and years and years.
Yes. I mean, everybody that has a human body experiences a health issue at some point. And so healthcare is something that we each have to worry about. Even, in my current role with HR, I'm who gets to set up our benefits. And so I understand the excitement when I get the email back that says that we only had a 3% increase instead of the projected 16% increase in our
Right.
So it feels like a win because you know that your staff are going to be able to a little bit better afford what is coming down the line. So I totally get that. And that is definitely impactful and making a difference. So Erica, I would love to hear what you have to say about this as well. What are some ways that you see people from your industry making a difference that can tack on to or echo what Kristen has said or be something completely different?
No, great. I'll do something different just because I'm not specifically in the health industry, but last year, pretty much this time last year, there was a big bill in Congress that passed that the president signed that was called the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. And if you sort of ignore the title for a minute, there was a pretty fantastic amount of spending in that bill, almost $370 billion that went towards climate initiatives, specifically trying to entice companies and others and individuals to live a little bit greener. And though they said they were going to have to spend $370 billion to get that, the ultimate goal was to get $3 trillion of investment by business to work on their climate initiatives. And I think it's already been out there for a number of where clients, where companies have been publicizing or publishing different papers on the initiatives they're taking to help the world. Solar, wind, all sorts of different examples. But what was really neat in that bill was that these are coming through as tax credits. And so if a company can show that a particular investment they're making or some type of energy that they're producing is decreasing their greenhouse gas emission, then there's a big fancy mathematical formula, but essentially it'll give them a tax credit. So it's really a win-win because it gives a company an incentive to go out and make big investment, primarily in the United States, which is good for the United States, and also to improve the way they operate as a business and reduce their greenhouse gas emission, which is better for us and the environment. So I have been helping a number of our teams with just identifying who those companies might be. Those companies have directly reached out to us, but there's a lot, as you can imagine, it's never easy. There's a lot of guidance and there's a lot of documentation, analysis, and things that the companies are going to have to do, steps they're going to have to take to get these credits. So we are helping them. And I think no better way to help them than to get them some tax credit for improving the environment. So I'm all about that and glad that it came out. And I think it's, again, great for both of our clients as well as the environment. So changing the world, one tax credit at a time.
Yes, sounds hugely impactful. I'm so glad that you explained all of that. I hadn't heard of any of that before, and I can't even imagine that quantity of funds. And so I'm glad to hear that they have dedicated that and that there are companies not only that you all are reaching out to, but are reaching out to you for that assistance to navigate, because it is very important. And, as Girl Scouts, we care very much about leaving no trace and
That's right.
maintaining the environment. So that's fantastic, both in the healthcare system and in environmental impact. That's wonderful that you all are able to do that sort of work. No wonder you have worked with PwC for so long, because that is life-changing work, very impactful.
Mm-hmm.
So let's
Absolutely.
see, my next question for you all. What advice do you have for young women that are interested in a career in your field? What sort of steps would you encourage them to take to get to where you have found yourself today? Kristen, I will go to you on this one.
I would say my number one piece of advice, kind of outside of, again, what we talked about earlier, just working really hard, capitalize on your strengths. I know that I'm, really good at developing relationships with people, and, really good at just kind of that, building that foundation and being a collaborator, and, starting, really listening to my clients and understanding kind of at the foundation or at the core, what they're struggling with. So I try to capitalize on that, and I really try to lean into that. Again, we're none of us are perfect. We're not good at everything. So I would just say really lean into your strengths and capitalize on that.
That sounds like great advice. I second that. We have gotten into some strengths workshops with our staff as well, and it really is kind of life-changing when you're able to look at your own strengths and say, oh, that makes total sense. Why I might be better at one thing than another. So Erica, what advice do you have for young women that are interested in a career in your field?
Maybe I'll go a different direction, and I'll just say, try to find someone that you could talk to about it that's in that field, a Kristen or an Erica or someone else. If you are fortunate enough to be at a university, a lot of times they have mentor programs for particular subject areas. I happen to be, even though I'm a Buckeye, I'm a mentor at Xavier University in Cincinnati, and so anybody who's interested in accounting can possibly get mapped to me, and then you get real life experiences. So if you're interested, I first of all think that's great, because sometimes I think we fail to get interest because you just don't know that much about what we might do. So
right.
Try to do a little bit of research online, but I think the best way to learn about what we do is to talk to someone. And I know you can always go through an organization like your fabulous one, through Girl Scouts or through a university, or probably even a high school or a middle school, to get someone to come in and talk about it. And I think it'll give you a better feel if you really do have interest in it, and how you can apply it to your career progression and what you want to be when you grow up. But I would just say, if you're interested, great, but you don't have to know what you want to be when you grow up. It's totally okay. And you can switch in the middle, and a lot of people do. But I totally agree with Kristen said, which is play off your strength. So if you have an interest, if you think that an accounting area or servicing, being a service organization or serving companies, or working for a company and helping people in like the health industry is something you're interested in, then you go for it with your strength. But try to reach out and talk to somebody.
Yes, I love that. And I also love that you mentioned that you do not have to know what you want to be when you grow up, because some of us change our major 5 times, and that's okay. And a lot of people that are graduating high school and going into college or taking another route after graduation, there's just not as much information that is right in your face about all of the different careers. So I do love that you mentioned doing your research, remain curious, use your resources around you. and try to find that mentorship to hear from someone who might be an expert in that field. That's great advice. So our last question is, what do you believe will be the biggest challenge for the next generation of female leaders, and what advice would you give them? I will send this back to you, Erica.
That's a loaded question.
I know.
think, and it's a great one. It's a great question. I think the next generation will probably still have a similar struggle as to what we have, but I hope it goes in a different direction. And what do I mean by that? So I do feel as women in the professional arena, we still do have a different approach with confidence, having a seat at the table, team player versus I did something. So I think that's inherent. So I do feel like that will continue to be a challenge. But what I hope is different is that, again, what I had and what Kristen had and what we hope to become is that there will be people that pave the way for you to make it a little bit easier, right? To give you the opportunity, more opportunity to shine and to be out there in the front, and to be leaders and changing the world, in whatever industry, not even in just this field. I still feel like the next generation, it will be exuding confidence. I do worry a little bit about, depending on how we shift with virtual versus being back in person. I worry that there's maybe been a little bit of a lost social aspect, and getting out there and being very in person with people, being live. So I hope that's temporary, and I hope that's not something that the next generation faces. But what do I know? We got AI coming. It might be a completely different way of working, right? So it's so hard to predict because it changes so fast. The working environment changes so quickly. But I think it's focusing on that inherent, like, female empowerment and leadership, and just continuing to foster that growth.
That makes total sense. And, adapting to the change that could be coming down the line. I think that a main message from our entire call today has been remain flexible. Everything will be okay.
You got it, Sarah.
Yes, thank you. And something that I do love about Girl Scouts is that there is some practice with those social emotional skills. And you might be right. A big challenge for the next generation could be some of the social aspects of things, because there was that period of time within COVID where things were just a little bit less in person. So I get that, and we'll encourage our girls and tell them to have faith that those before them have paved the way and tried to make it a little bit easier for them. So Kristen, last question. What do you believe will be the biggest challenge for the next generation of female leaders, and what advice would you give them?
Yeah, just to wrap it up, one of the things I think women will always be challenged with is, maybe comparing ourselves to others, and maybe comparing ourselves to, our male colleagues in the workforce. And I would just say, don't get caught up in kind of, watching others and comparing yourselves to others. It's okay to carve out your own path. It's okay to do things on a different timeline. It's okay to go, 100 miles an hour at certain points in your career and then have to step back a little bit. And, whether it's to, have a family or to, spend a little bit more time doing, something in the community. It's okay to carve out your own path, and that's not comfortable because you want to kind of compete, you want to keep up. But that's one thing I learned, that, you've got to do things on your own terms and what works best for you and for your family. And then I guess just the last piece of advice, and Erica mentioned that, is know that you belong and know that you deserve that seat at the table. You've worked so hard, and there's no reason to question that.
That's wonderful. I agree entirely. The learning to work through the discomfort of being outside of the norm, you belong anyway, It's okay to do things the way that you need to do them, regardless of how you're comparing yourself to others, and try to maintain that confidence because you are allowed to be yourself. So I love that. And that is very much in line with our values here at Girl Scouts. So thank you both so much. You have had such fantastic answers to these questions. It's been absolutely wonderful interviewing the both of you. And thank you both so much just for your time today. It was really, really wonderful hearing your answers.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thank you. We love
You're
it.
great. Always good to hear. Thank you so much. And you guys have a great evening, okay?
Thank
Bye,
you very much.
guys.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.